Steel City. Is everybody ready to go? Let's proclaim the greatest radio show.
Welcome, fans, to another episode of The Spread. I'm your host, Jim Sella, in studio with co-host Jay Dash, Big Easy, and JK47.
You know.
Gonna talk a little NFL free agency.
Gonna let all of our hair fly out of the back of our hats like we live in down south.
I am bringing back the 70s with my haircut, so...
With your Jeff...
It's flying out the back.
JK mullet.
Mine too.
Somebody tried telling me I look like Daryl. I'm like, bitch, I invented this look.
That's the only place my hair grows is on the side, not the back, though. On the top of my head, there's nothing.
Are we done talking about our haircuts now? We can get to football?
Or lack thereof.
Well...
Alright. I got a nice head of hair,
only,
so I ain't scared.
That's about
I ain't
it.
scared at all.
You know, Ben Roethlisberger got a new haircut today.
Please believe, you know he got freshed out before that press conference. For all you Steeler fans who don't know, Big Ben signed a new 5-year extension with the Steelers today. They announced it at 5 o'clock. Cracking another one. You got a triple fisted.
Quarterback, love this guy.
2 Super Bowls in his career, 5 division titles. Dash, I know you think he's garbage, but I think it's a big move for Pittsburgh.
Quit making up stuff.
They haven't announced the money part of it, but it's expected to be somewhere between like 100 and 115 million. Hopefully the cap hit's going to come down for the season because the Steelers aren't cap strapped, but they also don't have a whole lot of room right now. Not a lot of doing in free agency for them either.
Well,
So
they still didn't count Pouncey's extension, correct?
Right.
There's some money there. There's a couple other guys that can extend.
Troy's money
still,
won't come off until after June 1st, though, so Troy's money will be used to sign draft picks, not necessarily any free agents.
They have money to spend. I don't want to hear it.
They ain't got none, man. They're broke. All they can do is sign Arthur Moats and Matt Spaeth. And I like the Moats signing, especially since Jason Worlds decided to become a Jehovah's Witness. Worlds, if you come knocking on my door with one of those stupid pamphlets, I'm going to shut the door right in your face like I do to all the other ones. Do not knock on my door with soliciting me with anything. It's the most obnoxious thing you could ever do to me. Make me get up off my couch to tell me something I don't want to hear. Ridiculous.
you better hear it.
I don't want to hear squat.
You better hear it. You better hear life. You better hear the rules of life.
The rules of life are don't knock on my door with freaking mail that I don't want.
Well,
You better-
listen,
you
I
need to
thought
knock
the
on that
Steelers were
door.
going to sign a corner in free agency. It doesn't look like they're going to now. They really got to focus on a corner in the top end of the draft now, to me.
They're beat. Their defense is garbage.
They got, I mean,
Their defense could end up being one of the worst ones in the NFL this year.
if they don't make any
They're not
moves,
going to find
they-
anybody in a draft that's going to help their defense.
Well,
this
think
year.
about this.
They
At
need, to, they need to
D-line,
bring in somebody.
D-line's our best position on the defense right now with Hayward, McClendon, and Tuitt. At linebacker, you got Jones, who's done nothing, Shazier, who's only been in the league 1 year, Timmons, who's solid, and then probably Moats starting on the other side unless they draft somebody. You got Gay and Allen starting corners, and Mitchell and probably Shamarko at safety. So that doesn't seem too exciting to me.
Me either. That's why they had to make some moves in free agency. There's always, even if they say they don't have cap room, there's always ways to create more cap room. And they could have found a decent corner like that Kerry Williams from Philadelphia. It doesn't have to be a Darrelle Revis. But they could have done something, and I'm not happy with what they've done so far.
Well, they finally got someone to spell Le'Veon right.
Well, I like the LeGarrette Blount better than D'Angelo Williams. Don't get me wrong, D'Angelo Williams was one of my favorite players in college.
Yeah, but
he's like 31 years old now.
If LeGarrette Blount's going to show up and get Le'Veon high all the time, how focused can he really be on football?
A lot of the Blunt release was more of the off-the-field stuff and how they thought he was carrying himself in the locker room. I don't even think it had a lot to do with him walking off the field. I think they used that as more of a scapegoat.
Well, listen, if Le'Veon Bell wants to smoke weed, LeGarrette Blount doesn't have to hold his hand.
No, you're right, but I just don't think they
Yeah,
like
but if
the
you got
influence
someone
he had
showing
on
up
a
every
young
day with a
running back.
blunt rolled, you're going to smoke weed, right? But if you don't show up with a blunt rolled, I'm not going to smoke that day.
I like the D'Angelo Williams
Blount
signing.
probably had that
He's only
fire,
going to have to
too.
carry the ball 5 to 10 times a game at most. He's going to be a nice fill-in for the 1 to 4 games that Le'Veon will end up being suspended at the beginning of the year. He's good on third downs. He knows how to block. He knows an NFL offense. I think he's a solid addition to the backfield. He came in at a right price. Again, those numbers haven't been announced because Pittsburgh never announces stuff like that. You have to wait for it to leak. But I don't know.
It's
not,
a wait and see. If
it's
you
not a
ask me.
terrible deal to me.
You know, it's just a wait and see.
But going back to cornerback real quick, there's a couple guys left over. Tremont Williams, Chris Colliver, and Patrick Robinson are three guys that I wouldn't mind the Steelers looking at for the right price. None of them are going to be that, supreme number one shutdown, but they're all upgrades over Allen or Gay.
Allen to me, but they believe Allen's a starter apparently.
Yeah, I don't know why. Maybe Keith Butler sees something in him that Dick LeBeau didn't.
They re-signed Spaeth, so they're not looking for a backup tight end right now. Their offense is pretty much set now. They signed Williams. They could use some depth on the O-line, maybe
I want some tackles. I'm not sold on Gilbert and Beecham as my tackle.
Well, listen, they played well last year. I wouldn't just try to find an upgrade. I'd let them play and find some depth rather than try to find starters over them.
Maybe not necessarily sign a starter, but you got to get somebody. If your first three picks could be corner, linebacker, tackle, that would be suffice to me. And then maybe, unless, there's another corner that would jump out where you could get two
I'd
corners
get
and a
them all
linebacker.
defense.
There's no depth at tackle, man. One of those guys go down, we're screwed. Mike Adams is garbage. The one good thing that our offensive line is excited about is Haloti Nada being out of the division.
Yeah, where'd he go?
He got traded to Detroit.
Yeah, Detroit lost Sue and Fairley to the Rams, Sue
to the Dolphins.
To the Dolphins.
For quarterback money. He got a huge deal. Way too much money.
The Lions also got rid of Reggie Bush.
They re-signed their kicker, Matt Prater, for 3 years. Nobody
Garbage.
cares. And they signed quarterback Kellen Moore for 2 years. Nobody cares. They signed another quarterback. Well, they signed two quarterbacks. That don't make sense.
So they traded for Nada is pretty much what they did. They lost 2 tackles, brought in 1. They're probably going to be looking at tackle in the draft and early.
Yeah, probably with their first-round pick. They got to get something. They run that 4-3 defense, so they need to be stout in the middle.
Well, we were talking about Sue going to the Dolphins. They've had a pretty big offseason so far, huh?
They just traded Mike Wallace to the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, they brought in Kenny Stills to replace him. I actually think that's an upgrade.
Yeah, Stills had a little over 16 yards per catch last year. He's still on his rookie contract, so I don't even think he's making $1 million a year. And that huge deal that Wallace got was just ridiculous. Every Pittsburgh fan knew he wasn't worth the money that he got. He's a one-trick pony. All he does is go downfield, and you can't pay somebody like that much money. He got sent to the Vikings along with a 7th-round pick. The Vikings are only sending back a 5th-round pick. So that shows what the value was for Wallace around the league. But the Vikings are trying to build around Teddy Bridgewater, and they hope that Wallace can be their downfield threat, and they had a little bit more cap space than the Dolphins. The Dolphins also signed, what was his name from Cleveland? Jordan Cameron.
Jordan Cameron, yes.
They franchised Charles Clay, so it's weird that they signed Jordan Cameron unless they're going to try to let Clay...
Both those guys can get involved. They're both good tight ends. You don't expect both to be healthy all season. I think that's a good 1-2 combo to have.
Miami also signed a familiar face to Pittsburgh fans, cornerback Bryce McCain. He was a good nickelback for the Steelers last year.
Yeah, we had the Dolphins taking Kevin Johnson at number 14, a cornerback. Bryce McCain isn't the answer there, so
No.
There's still possibility they're taking a cornerback, but that is a good ad. McCain's a decent corner, a nice number 3 or number 4. They could use another wide receiver probably.
Who, the Dolphins?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. You want to surround Tannehill with more weapons. Who's their running back?
They need a running back, and it's possible they look at Melvin Gordon in the draft.
Okay, yeah, because you got Clay and Cameron, and you can play them both, obviously, if you're paying them both, especially one of them being on a franchise tag. You got Stills on the outside. Hartline just left there, so you definitely got to try to add a little bit more on the outside for Tannehill to be successful.
I like what Miami's doing on the offensive side, though. Tannehill had a pretty decent season last year, putting weapons around him. Looks like he'll maybe improve this season. They'll have a pretty good offense to compete in that division.
There's a couple running backs right now. Steven Jackson, Reggie Bush. The Dolphins had Noshawn. They decided not to
They had
re-sign
Reggie,
him.
too, at one point.
Stephen Ridley, Ahmad Bradshaw, Pierre Thomas. These are all guys that are possible fits down there. Chris Johnson. I mean, once he recovers from being shot in the arm, they may not draft somebody. They may go safety with that first pick and Landon Collins and try to pick up a veteran back. Running backs aren't valued as much as they were in previous years in the NFL. What about the team that made the biggest splash in free agency, the Philadelphia Eagles? They went nuts.
Well, they made a trade. They got rid of their number 1 running back in LaShawn McCoy, but they brought in DeMarco Murray, which is nice.
And Ryan Matthews.
You say DeMarco Murray isn't as good as McCoy.
No.
I may disagree. I wouldn't say he's a complete scat back, but he's more of a scat back. I think DeMarco Murray has
Skip it back.
a longer career ahead of him than LaShawn McCoy does.
I disagree. I think McCoy's a complete back, and I think Murray is only a runner, a straight-ahead runner. He's a one cut-and-go guy. I've always thought he was more of a product of the system he was in. Without that offensive line that Dallas had, I don't think he's going to do as well. He definitely doesn't catch the ball as well out of the backfield. Philly likes to run that up-tempo offense. They put Sam Bradford in, a quarterback who has no knees, so that's going to be a little bit of a trick.
Yeah, but I'll tell you one thing right now. Philadelphia has the best running back in that division, so that's going to go a long way.
Who else they got? Dallas has Darren McFadden. The Giants have Shane Vereen. And who else? Washington has
Alfred Morris.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
So that's a big advantage there.
Well, the Eagles also signed cornerback Byron Maxwell, who we wanted the Steelers to take a look at. They signed linebacker Brad Jones. Mark Sanchez, another 2-year deal, which who really cares? The bigger re-signing was outside linebacker / DN Brandon Graham, got a 4-year, $26 million deal. They got rid of their starting quarterback, starting running back, starting wide receiver, and starting linebacker in Trent Cole all within 7 days. So Chip Kelly got power over all personnel this year. Starting this offseason, they moved their GM to like assistant director of personnel or something. So Chip Kelly runs it all. He does all the drafts, he calls all the plays, he does everything, and he's really trying to shape this team to the way he wants it. 9 former Oregon Ducks on this team, and everybody expects them to try to make a big move to get Marcus Mariota in the draft. I don't know if they have the firepower to do it, though.
Why bring in Sam Bradford if you want to trade up and get Mariota?
I don't know. The Rams are trying to say that somebody offered them a first-round pick for Sam Bradford. If you're only going to give up a 5th or 7th-round pick for Mike Wallace, you're not giving up a first-round pick for Sam Bradford. Sorry, I don't believe it.
But really, the Eagles, they were looking for a quarterback. They found...
They hated Nick Foles. To me, Foles is way better than Bradford. Come on.
Foles is garbage.
They're both garbage.
They were also looking for a corner. They signed Maxwell and safety. You said they didn't sign a safety, right?
No.
So really, Landon Collins looks like an excellent option in the draft. Let's not forget they brought in Kiko Alonso in the trade for McCoy.
Yeah. And Alonso is on a rookie deal, and McCoy was set to make like $10 million, I think, this year. So that was a big part of why they got rid of him, because they got Alonso and Murray and I think another draft pick. So they filled a lot of holes with the cap space that they saved in getting rid of McCoy and Macklin.
Well, how about the New Orleans Saints? Look at what they're doing.
Fire sale.
Yep, Jimmy Graham to Seattle. That's huge for Russell Wilson.
Well, I mean, I know what they're trying to do, but why would you trade probably your best player on offense to a team in the NFC that's been the best team in the NFC for the last 2 years? You just made your biggest contender to make it to the Super Bowl even better.
Well, they probably were looking for a first-round pick, and that was the highest pick they could find for someone that wanted Jimmy Graham. They couldn't keep Jimmy Graham. Like we said, their salary cap situation was horrible, so they had to get rid of him. That was probably the best thing they found for him, and I'd rather give him to someone like that than take something less and give him to someone in the AFC.
I just don't give your biggest, not biggest rival, but your biggest obstacle to get to the Super Bowl, you don't give him somebody that's going to make them that much better.
Obviously, they think he's falling off, though.
They were like,
they're not just going to let a stud.
I think that's more to do with
no,
cap.
man, they were like $30 million.
Stud go away.
They were
All
like
right,
$30 million
it's all
over the
cash,
cap.
then let him go then.
Yeah, it was straight cash.
Well, they brought in Brandon Browner, so that cash helps a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, they signed Brandon Browner, 3 years, $18 million. They signed C.J. Spiller to a 4-year deal.
Like we said, they got rid of Kenny Stills.
Yeah, they re-signed.
Held on to Mark Ingram.
Yep. I mean, nobody cares about Luke McCown or Shane Graham, but I read an article today that the New Orleans Saints have told everybody in the NFL that everybody other than Drew Brees and Brandon Cooks are open for trade. So if you want them, call them. They got rid of Ben Grubbs, their starting guard. When you're that cap strapped, though, I mean, what else can you do?
Yeah, we're gonna have to see. Their cap's in a terrible situation. They're trying to work it out. They might not be a terrible team next year, though. Still, I mean, their defense isn't going to be great, but their offense should still be all right.
when you got Drew Brees at quarterback, your offense is going to be all right. Their division rival, the Atlanta Falcons, have been kind of quiet as far as free agency went. They signed linebacker Brooks Reed to a 5-year, $22 million deal, and linebacker O'Brien Schofield. That's kind of the biggest moves they made. Anybody who's listening to the show, if you know who these dudes are, congrats to you, because I had to look them up whenever I was looking for this. And as far as their division goes, that's pretty much the most that's gone on. Tampa Bay hasn't really done a whole lot. They released defensive end Michael Johnson, who they just signed to a big deal right before this past season to clear some cap room. They're looking to build with Jameis Winston, most likely with the first pick in the draft. Carolina, they're kind of standing pat. They were 7-8-1 last year, right? They had a tie. They were the team that tied. They won their division 2 times in a row for the first time in the franchise's history. They need to try to build a little bit more around Cam Newton, but they had been a little cap-strapped in the last few years. They released some veterans. They released Greg Hardy after the domestic abuse type deal he had going on. So I don't know how that works against their cap, since it was, like the suspension type thing. I don't know if that's any different. I doubt the NFL gives you any leeway. So that's it. The Saints are the only team in that division really doing much of anything.
Well, Carolina, they lost D'Angelo Williams to the Steelers, like we said earlier, but the biggest problem with them is their offensive line. I said it 100 times. If they don't get a better offensive line, they're not going to be a Super Bowl contender.
Well, they signed Michael Orr. He got a 2-year deal, and they re-signed Greg Olson, so that does help out. And I forgot that they signed Ted Ginn Jr. He might help downfield a little, but he's more of a special teams guy these days than an offensive firepower.
I'd still really look at an offensive lineman in the first round like a TJ Clemmings, who we actually had them taking in our first 2 mocks, I believe.
What about the Chicago Bears? Eddie B., one of our followers on Facebook and on YouTube, he said he wanted Pittsburgh to look at Artrell Roll, a safety, maybe try to bring him in for some veteran help. The Bears got Roll for 3 years, $11.25 million. They signed Eddie Royal to a 3-year deal. And they signed outside linebacker Pernell McPhee to a 5-year, $40 million deal. He was a former Baltimore Raven. That's more good news for Ben Roethlisberger. He got a 5-year deal, and Haloti Ngata and McPhee are both out of the division. Ben's getting all kinds of good news today.
Well, the Bears, they have Lance Briggs, who's 34, and Chris Coney's a free agent. He's just 26. DJ Williams, linebackers, and a free agent. He's 32. So they got a lot of work to do on their defense, and last season they were terrible. What about the Jets?
The Jets are garbage.
Big move, though, bringing back Darrelle Revis.
And Cromartie.
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I don't think the Jets are going to win now. I don't think they have the quarterback or the offense at all to win now. And they're going to strap themselves up with these big contracts. And then when Brady retires in 3 years and the division's open for the taking, they're not going to have any money to do anything.
Well, listen, the way I see it, they have the 6th pick. They could take Marcus Mariota. You could say he's not going to win. But guess what? They've made it to the AFC Championship twice with Mark Sanchez. And the reason I do like these cornerback signing there is they've already been there. So bring it. That's
a whole new regime, though.
I understand, but it's still an easier transition for players that already been to that city playing for that team. I like it. You play to win every season. You don't go into the season saying, "Oh, we're 3 years away still." You try to win.
I understand that, but I also think you got to know when your window to win is, and spending all this money and screwing yourself in 2-3 years isn't worth it for what they're going to get out of these 2 players.
I think they'll get great production out of these 2 players. I don't understand. They're going to have one of the better defenses in football next year, most likely. And Marcus Mariota can win. If Mark Sanchez can win with the Jets, Marcus Mariota can win.
The Jets also re-signed Bilal Powell. They signed cornerback Buster Skrine and safety Marcus Gilchrist. And Gilchrist isn't that bad. I'm pretty sure he came from the Chargers.
They re-signed linebacker David Harris. They traded for Brandon Marshall. I like what they're doing. They're trying to
defense, but I don't see anything coming out of it, and I think they're just going to screw themselves in the long run. Brandon Marshall's a headache, and that New York media, going to be crazy.
Well, he's not as much of a headache as Percy Harvin. That dude is a headache.
Well, they released him, and now he's signed with the Buffalo Bills, or he's expected to sign. I don't know if it's exactly official. The Bills are making some waves, though. They trade for Shady McCoy. They signed Percy Harvin, most likely.
They lost Spiller to replace McCoy.
Yeah, they re-signed DN Jerry Hughes for 5 years, $45 million. they're not sold on E.J. Manuel at quarterback. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. Rex Ryan, he likes to run the ball. He's got Shady McCoy. He already had a pretty good defense. You say Mark Sanchez won in New York and got him to an AFC championship game. I say it was not anything to do with Sanchez. He just didn't screw up bad. So, I mean, maybe the Bills can make a run at it with a good defense and a good running game. But I
think the Jets have a better defense, and you're talking about you hate what the Jets are doing, but the Bills are getting all these players, and they have no quarterback, but you're liking what they're doing.
The Bills haven't invested a bunch of money into aging veterans that in 2 years are going to be past their prime.
I'm telling you, LaShawn McCoy is not
all this money.
going to be what he used to be.
He still had over 1,000 yards last year.
Yeah, but he was not the same running back
because of Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly doesn't like him. Stephen A. Smith said he's racist. Didn't you hear? The New England Patriots, what have they done? Signed Devin McCourty.
They brought in Reggie Bush.
Tagged their kicker. I don't know if they actually signed him. Or
No,
just
they
looking
didn't
at
sign
him.
Reggie Bush. They brought him in.
They signed Scott Chandler. They released veteran defensive tackle Vince Wilfork, who's still a free agent.
I believe they signed linebacker Jabal Sheard, too.
They're the defending Super Bowl champs. They lost Ridley. They lost Vereen. Well, they didn't lose Ridley yet because he's still a free agent, but Vereen signed with the Giants. They never really cared about their running game to begin with, so I think they feel like they can just kind of plug in whoever.
Reggie Bush.
As long as Brady's on offense at quarterback, I think they feel like they got a chance to win. They're basically bringing back their same defense from last year. Belichick's a defensive specialist. He gets the best out of a lot of people. So it doesn't matter all these moves the Jets are making, moves that the Bills are making. None of it matters. New England's still going to win the division, and none of those teams are going to have a shot at anything anyway.
I wouldn't be so sure. Tom Brady isn't going to last forever. Next year could be a year where he starts to decline. It got to happen sometime, and he's getting older, so it could be next year. I'm not saying it's guaranteed, but I wouldn't just write off the other teams just yet. How about our favorite team, the Oakland Raiders, bringing in another quarterback in Christian Ponder to back up Derek Carr. Everyone sold that Derek Carr's the greatest football player ever. He's Jesus with a chin strap.
Believe it.
But who knows? Maybe Christian Ponder can beat him out for the job because I'm not sold on Derek Carr at all.
They signed center Rodney Hudson to a 5-year, $44.5 million deal, so they at least got a center to protect him.
They got rid of Woodley. That's addition by subtraction.
Believe it. They signed Roy Halu to a 2-year deal to replace McFadden and Maurice Jones-Drew, who retired, and they're going to pair him probably with Murray? Latavius. I always think it's Ladarius. Oakland, they're not going to sniff the playoffs. They're so far away. They have so many holes. At least they didn't go out and spend all their money on a bunch of old people who aren't going to help them. That's all I can say.
The one thing I like about them is they have Rod Woodson and Ken Norton Jr. working their defense.
Love Rod Woodson. Why would he... Raiders. Come on, Rod.
In Rod we trust.
Let's talk about a team that's actually good in the AFC, the Indianapolis Colts. They signed Frank Gore to a 3-year deal. They signed Andre Johnson to a 3-year deal.
Busted.
What do you mean busted?
These are old.
They both had over 1,000 yards last year.
All right, well, so what are they going to do this year?
Better than that. You think Andre Johnson's not going to get between 1,200 and 1,500 yards
I remember having
this year?
an argument with you
You're crazy.
and JK that you guys were saying running backs that don't get 1,600 yards are garbage.
They don't need a running back that doesn't get
you said
1,600 yards.
You both said that. I was arguing that 1,000 yards is good, and you said 1,000 yards is garbage.
I've actually always been a Frank Gore fan.
I'm not saying you hate Frank Gore or anything. I was just...
I like Andre Johnson, too. Actually, I like these moves the Colts have made.
Yeah, they signed Trent Cole. They signed offensive lineman Todd Hermans. They re-signed another one of their guards. They re-signed Mike Adams to a 2-year deal. I don't know why they signed Matt Hasselbeck. That's stupid. Nobody cares about that. They re-signed cornerback Darius Butler to 2 years. They're stacking up. They're getting ready to try to take on the Patriots again. They got blasted 45-7 in the AFC Championship game. The one thing that scares me is these offensive moves. I mean, the O-line moves, yeah, you want to keep Luck upright, but their offense wasn't the problem. It was their defense. I do like the addition of Trent Cole, and keeping safety Mike Adams, but they're going to have to get a little bit of help on the defensive side, maybe go defense in the draft.
Yeah, LaRon Landry was released. Let's not forget about Reggie Wayne, though, too.
Yeah, Reggie
Wayne retires.
Is he retiring?
Well, he's not playing for the Colts anymore.
Yeah, he's not playing for the Colts.
He's not going to play anywhere.
Well, Frank Gore's not playing for San Francisco, does that mean he retired?
Frank Gore signed for the Colts, where
Frank
Reggie
Gore.
Wayne signed.
He might as well retire.
Reggie Wayne's also been in
He'll
the league
sign.
a lot longer than Gore has. Although I always was a big Reggie Wayne fan, you know.
Oh, yeah, you love Reggie
It'd
Wayne.
be hard not seeing him in that.
I think what they need to do is work on their offensive line just to keep Andrew Luck upright. That was one of their biggest flaws last season, is he was on the ground a lot.
A lot of big things, though, to come from Andrew Luck, though.
Yeah, he's still a beast.
Last season, Gore rushed for 1,100 yards and 4 touchdowns and started all 16 games on a team who was only 8-8, and he has 11,000 yards and 64 touchdowns in 148 career games. It doesn't sound beat to me, easy.
Who we talk about?
Well, what
Gore.
happened 5 years ago doesn't matter.
I'm not saying Gore's beat. I'm just saying it's not like the biggest
Well, when you're
of them
running
all.
back
they
last
bring
year-
in, they bring in an old running. It's like us bringing in Williams. Us bringing in Williams is the same as the Colts bringing in Gore.
Gore is going to start for the Colts. Williams will not start for the Steelers over
Well, that's because
Le'Veon
the Colts
Bell.
have no running back.
Right, which is why it's a big move. He's an upgrade over Trent Richardson and Boom Herron, dude you never even heard of. When you get a guy who has 11,000 yards under his belt, that's a huge
Yeah, the
upgrade.
guy was with the same team his whole career. Now he's going the whole way on the other side of the country.
He's going halfway
With a-
across the
with
country.
With another team.
With a
Who
better
knows what he's
quarterback,
gonna do.
a better O-line, better receivers around him. A
Who
team
knows
that's
what
not
he's
in
gonna-
complete disarray because they just lost their coach
I'm
and promoted
I'm
some
not
guy
gonna
they don't
clap
even
my
know who
hands
they are.
and Celebrate because the Colts got Frank Gore.
Well, I guarantee you Gore gets over 1,000 yards this year, and I guarantee you
Oh,
Johnson
man.
gets over 1,200 yards, and Johnson will probably have 10 touchdowns.
I could see
That's
Johnson,
hardcore.
Gore over 1,000 yards. I don't know.
I think that's a little bit sketchy.
He's
Colts,
going to be their feature back.
still, it
He
doesn't
could,
matter
I
to
mean,
me.
but
The
the-
Colts run game is never
Yeah.
that great.
Colts have all actually proved in the
Marshall
last several
Faulk.
years.
Well, Marshall Faulk and Edgerrin James tore the league up, so I'm going to disagree that they didn't have a good running game.
yeah, I mean, as good as Frank
You're talking
Gore-
about Edger James and Marshall Faulk, dude. What happened about the players that played for him the past 8 years? I'd be surprised if Frank Gore got 1,000 yards.
All right, we'll see.
Want to
I'll
put
be
a bet on
surprised
it?
if Andre Johnson scores 8 touchdowns.
It just depends on their offensive line because the Colts aren't really good run blockers to begin
Well,
with.
that's why they signed Todd Hermans in the offseason. You bring in offensive line help. You draft another offensive lineman, maybe with your second or third round pick.
Colts, baby.
Another team in their division, the Jacksonville Jaguars, they had huge money to spend, and they spent big money on Julius Thomas. 5 years, $46 million. What do you think, Easy? Given a guy who did have 2 good years with Peyton, but basically unproven for his career, still a very raw player to me, and in a young offense down there in Jacksonville, is he really going to give you that much?
Tight end in that division is going to give you a lot.
Yeah.
I think. Because you're not looking at much else at that position there with Tennessee and your gang Indy.
Well, they got Fleener and Allen. Those are both 2 pretty good, not top
Nah,
flight,
Luck-
but pretty
Luck-
good tight ends.
Luck just makes them look like Michael Jordan on a football field.
Who else they got in the
Cubby
division?
Fleener and their other dude. Who's that other guy?
Dwayne Allen, I
Yeah,
think his
the
name
big
is.
dude.
Yeah.
He's they're not that good, I don't think. But just I don't know. I think it's good. I think it's nice. I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, you got to bring in players around to put around Blake Bortles, and he was one of the best free agents out there. I like the receivers they have. They have 4 or 5 that I like. It'd be nice to see him to get another running back though.
I heard Thomas sign with them because Bortles has always got so much hot ass running around him. He just wanted to get some of the fallout.
That's it.
You
They
got a lot-
definitely need a running back though, Dash. You're right, because Toby Gerhardt, sorry, Easy, giant bust. I didn't mean to do that to you last year. And with Denard Robinson, he'll never be a feature back. He's a good guy to have in the backfield, but he's really having injury problems.
I'll tell you what, though, you got to like her signing of Jared Aldrich, though. I mean, that's going to help tremendously on their defensive line to what's been actually lacking.
Yeah, and they
Yeah,
signed
that's their
cornerback
biggest
Devin
need.
House. Their defense was terrible last year, so anything they can do to help improve their defense is going to be good.
They're going to go defense in the draft too.
But they definitely need a pass rusher down there because they haven't been getting to the quarterback at all.
Dante Fowler Jr.
That's who I think. Well, let's move on to probably the Steelers' biggest rival to win the division this year, with Baltimore losing everybody because of that huge Joe Flacco contract. The Cincinnati Bengals, they re-signed linebacker Ray Maliuga, re-signed offensive lineman Eric Winston. A.J. Hawk goes from Green Bay to Cincinnati now in a 4-3 scheme. They re-signed guard Clint Bowling for a 5-year, $26 million deal. Nothing huge, nothing flashy, kind of standing pat a little bit like Pittsburgh does.
AJ Hawk's the biggest name.
Yeah.
It might help, you said, like you were saying earlier, that he's in a 4-3, but really he had a bad season last year. I think his guy's just a bigger name than player.
I mean, he lost a step, definitely, especially, coming off the edge real quick at the quarterback. But if he could still provide solid play against the run, cover his spot on the field over on that one side, a little bit of leadership. It's only a 2-year deal. It's not like they broke the bank. But Cincinnati didn't really add much offensively. They feel like Andy Dalton and company can handle the load. They have said that they're not looking to add another running back. They have Bernard. What are their running backs?
Giovanni Bernard and
Jeremy Hill.
Two good running backs. There's no need for another running back.
Yeah, I don't know. For some reason, Cincinnati fans are clamoring for a better running game. I think they were just not both healthy at the same time last year, so it hurt the team a little bit.
Right. There's no need for it.
Now, they did re-sign kicker Mike Nugent, which is only funny to say because I like to say Nugent.
Is he related to Ted?
I think it's his second cousin.
Sweet. I got a zit on my ear and it hurts.
It's always fun. Demaryius Thomas had a zit on his ear, and then the Denver Broncos franchised him, and he didn't really care anymore.
Missed 2 games because of it.
Yeah.
He was a bust.
He's going to get big money from Denver. If not, then he'll get big money in this franchise year and then get big money somewhere else. Another wide receiver, Green Bay. Nobody thought Green Bay was going to be able to keep Randall Cobb. They inked him to a 4-year, $40 million deal. They also re-signed offensive lineman Brian Beluga to a 5-year deal. And they're expected to let quarterback Matt Flynn go because they signed quarterback Scott Tolzien to a 1-year deal.
Insignificant.
Yeah, but for all those Matt Flynn fans, that dude is like the best guy at making money in the NFL. He goes from team to team, 2 or 3 every year, gets these deals that are completely overinflated for his value, plays maybe 2 games. And
Raiders know what you're talking about.
Yeah, Raiders, Seattle, Packers, Seattle. Like it's
Raiders, Seattle, Packers, Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, come on. See, he
Everyone
just
is
keeps
Seattle.
going to these freaking teams and making all these money. I wish I could do that. The Houston Texans signed another corner that could have been good for Pittsburgh, Kareem Jackson. They signed Brian Hoyer and Ryan Mallett down there. That's interesting. It's going to be a little bit of a competition between them and Tom Savage for the quarterback spot in Houston.
Sounds horrible.
Yeah, and you know what most people say. If you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks.
If you have 3, you have -1.
It's going to be bad. Bubby Hoyer, Ryan Mallett, and some dude who went to Pitt.
Then they
got
lose
no
Andre
chance.
Johnson. They need some help.
Yeah, they're screwed. The only thing they got is J.J. Watt and that wide receiver whose name I cannot remember. at the
DeAndre
moment.
Hopkins, Arian Foster.
Yeah,
come on.
Arian Foster's pretty
Yeah,
good.
I think that McCoy's better than Foster, so
No.
I do. That's
Well, you could think what you want. I'm just saying.
all right.
that.
We'll compare their stats over their career, and I bet you McCoy's are better.
I don't care about career. It's right now. But
Well,
Pedro's.
right now, he's still better than Arian Foster right now.
You're dead wrong.
Tell us your opinion, sports fans. LaShawn McCoy or Arian Foster's?
Who's better?
Who is better?
Help
Let us
win the
know.
debate.
Give us
That's a tough
DeMarco
debate.
Murray in that too,
We
because
want to rub it in Dash's face when I win.
Listen, McCoy's might be the biggest name, but I think he has the shortest career ahead of him. Just the way he plays, it's those type of running backs don't last long.
DeMarco Murray had 400 carries almost last year. If anybody's going to have a down year because of the way they play, it's him.
It's possible.
Coy's one more cushion away from living in Oz.
He don't care. He's rich. Dash says Murray. I say McCoy. We'll see how it goes. Spread fans, you can hate on whoever's wrong.
To me, in football, it's all about what you've done for me lately.
Yeah, and mostly running backs who've had as many carries as Murray had last year have a very down season compared to that one the
Sometimes,
next
yeah.
year. But the jury's out, and we'll find out. We'll see if Chip Kelly is a genius or he's going to pull
Well, I
off
think
Bobby Petrino and run
next
back
year,
to college.
if you ask me, Murray's just going to have a better season because he has a better offense.
We'll see. I think McCoy's going to be more featured in the offense than Murray will because Chip Kelly's style of offense is to spread the ball around, and Buffalo only has McCoy, so they're going to run him into the ground, and he's going to be the Murray next year, from this year, where he's going to have the 300 and something 92 touches, and Murray's probably only going to end up with like 300. Dick LeBeau's new team's making some moves defensively, signing linebacker Brian Arakpo to a 4-year deal. That's kind of a long-term deal for me for somebody his age. They re-signed linebacker Derek Morgan 4 years, re-signed D-line Carl Klung for 2 years. They added Harry Douglas and Anthony Fasano to the offense. They're trying to bring Ike Taylor and James Harrison to town, and possibly even Troy Polamalu, but I don't even know if any of them. Maybe Ike, I think, would go, and then I'd say James, but I don't think Troy's going to go. Troy's going to play for Pittsburgh, or he's going to retire.
I think he's gonna. Well, I could see him playing for someone else if he wants to play, because I don't think the Steelers are gonna bring him back.
No, Pittsburgh's not going to bring Troy back, but he doesn't love football like some of these other players, and he's made enough money, so I think he's either going to decide to call it quits, and pretty much is his only option, actually, because Pittsburgh ain't going to bring him back, like you said. But I don't see him going to Tennessee. If he's going to play, it's going to be for a winner, and they're not a winner. They have nobody at quarterback. Jake Locker retired, another guy. Him and Jason Worlds both retiring way, way too young.
The Angels own Jake Locker's rights in baseball, so
Yeah.
he could actually come out and start playing.
I just read an article that said the Angels have no intentions on bringing Locker in, and if he wants to pursue his baseball career, they will grant him his release.
Jake Locker, hang him up, brother.
He needs to hang up his locker.
You don't like it no more?
Get out.
I don't think he has
Roll.
a locker anymore.
Yep, he's lockerless.
How's Johnny Manziel's rehab going?
He stayed in rehab later than he's supposed to. His 28 days was up, and he decided to stay longer.
I told you, it's all he wants to change, man.
It ain't on him. It's somebody else made him do it. He's a loser.
He's in there trying.
Nobody
to,
can make you stay in that.
He's in there
crap.
trying to figure
Well,
out
whenever
the spread
your
offense.
family and all your football team who pay you millions of dollars says you have to stay in there, you pretty much just do it.
Why? I never listened to him before. Why start now if he doesn't want to?
Because he ain't going to make millions of dollars now if he doesn't listen. In college, he wasn't making money,
He's
so he didn't
already
care.
rich, man. His family's rich.
He's garbage. Cleveland Browns are garbage, too. They haven't done much. They signed Brian Hartline and Josh McCown. There's 2 winners for you. That's going to put you over the hump, Cleveland.
It's more than the Steelers have done.
Steelers signed D'Angelo Williams and Ben Roethlisberger. That's way better than Brian Hartline and Josh McCown.
Well, Big Ben doesn't count.
Hey, re-signing him's big move.
It is, but I'm just saying next year he was on our team no matter what.
Well, that wraps it up, fans. I want to thank you for stopping in for an NFL free agency segment. Thank you guys for coming and sitting in studio with me. You guys can follow us on Twitter at bet_the_spread. You could follow me on Twitter at betjimthewin. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to that YouTube channel. Remember, everybody watch DeMarco Murray and McCoy stats so we can all hate on Dash
And
at
who's
the end
the
of the
other
year
guy?
when I'm right.
Murray, Frank Gizzle.
Oh,
Frank Gore.
Frank Gore, he's going to be over 1,000. And Andre Johnson's going to be over 1,200. You heard it here first, folks.